Hello friends, and welcome to the farm. Welcome into my kitchen here in my 1902 farmhouse. You know, recently I've been sharing with some friends of mine as we've been putting our long-term pantries together and making sure that we have everything that's needed in case we ever find ourselves in a grid down situation. One of the topics that came up was something that I have actually started within the last year or two, but I haven't finished it yet. But I thought even though it's incomplete, I would bring it here, show you what I'm doing, and this is actually a challenge. What I started a couple of years ago is I started this binder. I keep this binder in a handy spot, and this has all of my recipes that I would use, recipes that you're not going to have in your usual cookbooks, recipes that are specific for your likes, for what your family likes, what you like to cook on the regular, that you're not going to be able to pull up the recipe on the internet anytime you want it in case we end up in a grid down situation. I shared with friends before, way back in 2020, before we started all of this craziness, I said, you know, you need to write down your favorite bread recipe. You need to write down some of your favorite recipes because you might not be able to get them off the internet like they had become accustomed to. This is a collaboration to share what are your top 5 must-have recipes that you would put in a grid down binder so that you have it handy should you need them. Now, I'm not talking about, oh, I've got my bread recipe in my head, I know what to do. Friends, what if you're grid down and you're hurt? What if you're sick? What if one of your daughters or your daughter-in-laws or your son or your husband, what if somebody in your household needs to step up and take your place for a little while and they don't know how to bake your bread or how to put together some of your favorite meals? This is why I want to encourage you to make a binder. So here are my top 5 recipes. A yeast bread. You want to make sure that you have your bread recipe at the ready and available at all times. I have a beautiful yeast Artisan Bread. It's only 3 ingredients. It's the one that I love to use. It's my go-to. I don't make any other. I can make this bread in my toaster oven. I can make it in my turkey roaster, or I can make it in my sun oven using the power of the sun. If we're in a grid down situation, this is the recipe I want. So I will share my recipe for the Artisan Bread. Just as equally important is I do have a recipe for Navajo Flat Bread. You want to have a bread that you don't necessarily need yeast for. What if you find yourself in a situation where there's no yeast? I've been in that situation. In 2020, our area, no yeast, wiped out. It was quite the deal. I knew women who depended on baking their bread. They were not able to bake their bread because they ran out of yeast. So it's always nice to have something on hand in your recipe binder that you can turn to for a flat bread. So I really like using this Navajo Flat Bread. Lots of different ways you can dress it up and make it delicious. What I really like about this Navajo bread recipe is you don't need the yeast. You can make this, roll them out into little cakes and put them in some oil and fry them up. They're delicious with chili on top. You know, you could put together a really nice batch of meal in a jar dehydrated chili, cook that up over a camp stove, make some Navajo flat bread in a cast iron skillet over a fire, and you're set. You don't have to worry about being in a grid down situation. Now that I've got those 2 breads out of the way, one thing that I definitely have to keep the recipe handy for is a beautiful entree that I like to make in my solar oven. Don't need any gas, don't need any electricity. It is absolutely delicious, and it's a Nepalese dish that I learned from another channel here on YouTube. I'll put the link to her channel in the description box below. Her name escapes me at the moment while I'm filming this, but I want to make sure that I give her full credit for this delicious recipe. I thought it was a little bit crazy at first until I tried it, and it is absolutely delicious. The recipe is called Dal Baht, and it is eaten every single day in Nepal. It is delicious, it is easy to make, and I want to make sure that I have this recipe handy at all times because these are ingredients that I usually have in my long-term pantry, and if we find ourselves without any way to properly cook our food other than our sun oven or over an open fire, I know that this is going to be filling and hearty and nutritious for my family, and I want to make sure I can make this at all times. Next on my list is just a really nice cream soup base. There's so much you can do with this base. You can make cream soups, you can make some delicious macaroni with cheese or a cream sauce, Alfredo, all types of neat things you can do with this cream sauce. Again, I learned this from another YouTuber several years ago. I've added it to my book. I love it. I will put the link to her channel in the description box below so she gets credit for this recipe, but I've incorporated it into our day-to-day pantry staples here on the farm, and it's one I want to share with you. It is delicious. It is cream of something soup, and I will share the recipe with you in the description box, but it is definitely one that I keep in my grid down binder. I have to have it. There are so many different ways to make soups and pastas, and you can add it to so many things. It's wonderful. Make sure you look into adding this to your binder. And you know, friends, that just leaves us with one more thing, and that's desserts. I think you should have a feel-good, at the standby, ready dessert at all times, something that you can put together to kind of keep your spirits up if you're in a grid down situation. I have to admit, my desserts tab is empty. I haven't printed anything out yet, but I tell you what I would put in here. I would put in some type of an easy fruit cobbler recipe. And one of my favorites is just taking a cake box mix, some butter and some fruit, and throwing it into my sun oven. It makes a delicious cobbler. So I'm going to be able to print that out as soon as my printer's working. I will add that to my binder. I also did a video on Kacy's cobbler from over at Boots and Bounty Homestead. I'll put the link to that right up here. If you go over and say hello to Kacy, tell her that Country Mama sent you. She has a delicious cobbler recipe that I love to make in my sun oven. I like to have it available two ways though. I like to have it if I can use that instant cake mix that I get on sale, and also with the ingredients that I have in my pantry. So that's it, friends. Those are my 5. What are your 5 must-have, grid down ingredients that you would print out and put into a binder to keep handy should you need it? Okay, friends, this is an open collaboration. I'm going to invite all of you, but I'm not going to call anyone out. But I'd like to encourage you to join this collaboration. I'd love for you to use the hashtag top 5 grid down recipes, and share them. Share if you're going to make a binder. Even if you don't have a binder started, show where you keep your recipes and share with us your top 5 grid down recipes, something that you would utilize if we were off the grid unexpectedly. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen today and joining me here on the farm. Until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, have a blessed day, and get started on your binder. Bye-bye.